but this time it went way too far. And it was called the Brady Bill. And the Brady Bill was named after James Brady, who was the press secretary for Ronald Reagan during the assassination attempt on Reagan in March of 1981. So that's how closely connected I am to that incident, because after he was shot, James Brady was the one that got it the worst. He took a bullet to the head, and he was confined to a wheelchair after that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on another episode of The Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by our phenomenal sponsors, like our amazing sponsors over at AMP America and our amazing sponsors at Cardio Miracle. Now, AMP America, folks, they're giving you the news you need to know without the corporate media bias or fluff. So if you're looking for news articles, opinion pieces, podcasts, and more, head to ampamerica.com. They're doing some great stuff, and I'm very excited to be part of the AMP America family. One more time, ampamerica.com. Also, the Brian Nichols Show and yours truly, powered by our phenomenal studio sponsor, Cardio Miracle. Now, folks, I've been ranting and raving about Cardio Miracle well over a year and a half now, and that's because the results are in, and the results are shocking, amazing, phenomenal, because I've seen the Cardio Miracle difference for myself. What is that? A lower blood pressure, lower resting heart rate, increased pump at the gym, plus getting rid of those restless nights of sleep. I've seen the difference. I know you will as well. Head to briannicholsshow.com/heart to learn more, or just stick around. Later in the episode, we're going to go ahead and talk about Cardio Miracle in a little bit more detail. So stay tuned. But for today's conversation, let's talk today about the importance of your sheriff. Yes, I know we always go to the ballot booth, and that just is one of those line items that we will cast our vote for. But unfortunately, many folks don't think about the implications of voting for sheriff, and specifically who their sheriffs are. So let's talk about that and more. Joining me here on the Brian Nichols Show today is Sheriff Richard Mack. He's joining us from CSPOA. Sheriff Mack, welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that great introduction. And thank you for all the work that you do. Oh, and one other thing. You just reminded me. I need some more Cardio Miracle. I haven't ordered lately.
Well, make sure you use code TBNS, Sheriff Mack, when you go ahead and do that. You'll get 15% off your order.
Yeah, thank you. I will. And yeah, it's great. And I haven't had another heart attack since I started taking it.
There you go.
Actually, I've had 2 in my lifetime. So you know, I need to be watching, and I definitely need that stuff.
This was, by the way, folks, this was completely off the cuff here. Sheriff Mack, I did not pay him to say that.
I didn't know you were advertising for them. So that's why it got to me. Thank you.
Yeah, we had John Hewlett on the show back, oh my goodness, a year and a half-ish.
Ask John, how about that Sheriff Mack guy?
Oh, okay, it better be all good things, Sheriff Mack, because I don't want to get in trouble.
I guarantee it will be, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'll make sure I go ahead and give a good word. And by the way, folks, yeah, I'm not just saying Cardio Miracle is great because I get sponsorship revenue, but it's great. I use it every single day. Now, my personal story, I had a high blood pressure thanks to mom and dad, family history. Gotta love it. I work out 7 days a week, Sheriff Mack. I lift weights all day long. Well, not all day long. I work, believe it or not. But when I go to the gym, I lift heavy things up and I put heavy things down. And my blood pressure was still in the 140s over 90s. And I'm like, what gives? And then I started taking Cardio Miracle. And I'm not kidding. Since then, I have had zero readings over 120 over 80. That just, it blew me away. And on top of that, just feeling better. I mean, the slew of benefits, but unfortunately, Sheriff Mack, this is not the Cardio Miracle Show. This is the Brian Nichols Show, which means we are here to talk about some of the very important issues that matter to our world. And with that, we like to bring a perspective that helps educate, enlighten, and inform. And I saw you join the show today, and I got excited because I hear about the role of Sheriff Mack. And this is one of the areas where I grew up in the world of local politics. I was involved all day long. I saw the value, but then when I went to college and I talked to all my peers, they were completely removed from the political system. And you talk to them about the importance of paying attention to these types of roles, and it's like deer in the headlights look. So before we go into the importance of the role of sheriff, which I would love to hear from your own words, but do us a favor first, Sheriff Mack. Introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience and why you like using Cardio Miracle so much. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong podcast. Why you are joining us here today to not just talk about your past as a sheriff, but promoting the CSPOA.
Well, in 2011, I formed a group called Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And there was one reason why I did. It was because I actually studied my own Supreme Court case. And what I did is well, let me start with the Supreme Court case. I used to be a sheriff right here in Arizona. My office is in Gilbert, Arizona, right outside Phoenix. And I became the first sheriff in American history, and it hasn't happened before and it hasn't happened since, that a sheriff actually launched a major lawsuit against the federal government, took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and we won. We kicked the butt of the Clinton administration, and we lived to tell about it.
Hey everyone, let's talk about the elephant in everybody's room, insurance. Does all that insurance jargon make your head spin? If so, you're not alone. It's tough to make smart decisions about your family's protection when it all sounds like gobbledygook. Well, I recently discovered a company that's changing the insurance game, and that company is called Policy Engineer. These folks are on a mission to make insurance understandable for everyone. They offer free educational webinars, personalized consultations, and easy-to-digest resources to help you become an insurance pro. Here's their approach. They explain, you decide. They'll walk you through your options, answer all of your questions, and empower you to make confident choices about your family's future. Because when you understand your coverage, you can rest easy knowing you made the right decision all along. Ready to take control of your insurance? Head over to policyengineer.com and start your journey to becoming an informed, empowered policyholder. And of course, don't forget to tell them the Brian Nichols Show sent you. Policy Engineer, redefining insurance one member at a time. And now, let's get back to the show.
How about that for a miracle?
Now, that right there, Sheriff Mack, that's not something that many folks who stand toe-to-toe with the Clintons can actually say.
Yeah, I know. So, but, the day's not over, so you never know what they're going to do. But
maybe that explains those heart attacks.
Yeah. This was an amazing case, though. Absolutely a miracle. That a small town sheriff from Southeast Arizona would take on the Goliath federal government and beat them. But why? What was the issue? Well, there's a lot of overreach from the federal government, especially the Clinton administration. But this time it went way too far. And it was called the Brady Bill. And the Brady Bill was named after James Brady, who was the press secretary for Ronald Reagan during the assassination attempt on Reagan in March of 1981. So that's how closely connected I am to that incident, because after he was shot, James Brady was the one that got it the worst. He took a bullet to the head, and he was confined to a wheelchair after that. And his speech was a little bit slurred, but he was still very with it mentally, very smart.
And by the way, Sheriff Mack, it wasn't even the direct gunshot, right? It was the ricochet off of the car, I believe, that hit Brady, if I'm wrong, right? Or
I don't remember. I actually don't think so.
Okay.
I think it was one of the direct hits. I think the ricochet hit Reagan.
Hit Reagan in the lung. Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, hit him in the lung. And nobody knew it.
Right.
Until the Secret Service guy started checking him out. He started looking weird. He started checking him out, and he found the blood coming down his shirt. So, but this was obviously that was a major historical event. But Sarah Brady, Jim Brady's wife, exploited it for gun control. And
heard that before, haven't we? Jeez.
Yeah. And so it was called the Brady Bill, named after her husband. And it took about 15 years, but it started gaining some traction. And in 1993, it was signed into, quote, law by President Clinton. And then January 21st, 1994, something absolutely astonishing happened. We were having a Sheriff's Association meeting in Phoenix, and 3 agents of the BATF showed up at our meeting to hand all 15 sheriffs. There's only 15 sheriffs in Arizona, and only 13 were there. 2 sheriffs didn't show. And the BATF agents gave us a document, 25 pages long, detailing, get this, our marching orders as to how we had to comply and enforce the Brady Bill.
Well, that doesn't sound like how federalism works.
Oh my gosh. Well, if it's federalism from the federal government only, then that's how it works. Because Justice Stevens actually said it was the epitome of, quote, cooperative federalism. In other words, they order us to do stuff and we do it, and that's how it's cooperative.
Is that what we call cooperative nowadays? I say something and you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for cooperating.
But get this, we were required to do it all. There was no funding, and believe me now, just so you know, I wouldn't have done it had it been funded because it was unconstitutional. It was gun control, and even worse. How could it be worse than gun control? It was sheriff control. They were commandeering the office of sheriff for federal bidding, and get this, under a threat of arrest if we failed to comply.
Ooh.
True story. And this has all the highlights of this case. And in fact, it has a quote of that threat of arrest. And folks, this is the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of America. And it is the case that saved the office of sheriff nationwide, because it went so far. Scalia wrote the decision, and it went so far as to say that the federal government can't tell anyone in our states what to do, and that the federal government is not our boss. Let me quote how he says they're not our boss. Quoting a previous decision that Scalia talked about, New York v. U.S. of 1992, he said this: we have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Now, if the state legislatures are not subject to federal direction, then what in the state is subject to federal direction? Nothing. He even says later in the order of the court that they cannot commandeer the legislatures or the officers of the state or any of their, quote, political subdivisions, which means everybody in the state. It doesn't matter if it's the dog catcher, the sheriff, the mayor, the school board. They are all political subdivisions of the state, and they do not answer to or obey the federal government. They're not our boss. We are not subject to their direction. And so that is huge right there. But there's even bigger quotes than that. And folks, get these. It fits right in your coat pocket, shirt pocket, whatever, your back pocket, your purse. I spent days and days getting all the highlights of this case, and I put them in this little 16-page booklet, and you cannot be without this. This is the best ammunition that you have ever had in your possession to show your state officials that the federal government cannot tell us what to do, that they were created as a servant of the states, and that the states created them, not the other way around.
Well, so, Sheriff Mack, by the way, that right there, right? That is something for me we need today. Absolutely. Because I don't know if you saw this, but over 4 years ago, we kind of went through this little weird thing called COVID. And I don't know. We watched a lot of these federal bureaucracies just be like, states' rights? What are those? Let's step all over those. And there was edicts
that goes right along with what you're saying. And this is right from Scalia again. Quote, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions.
Oh, jeez.
I know. And now it even gets better. And in that same paragraph, it's right in here, folks. It says it protects us, quote, from the crisis of the day. Quote. Does it get any more powerful than that? Come on, Brian.
I mean, we've talked about this in the show, by the way, the danger of do good politics. Scalia just put it in a lot more nice words than I did.
Yeah. Well, he said he called the four dissenters, the four Democrats that dissented, he called them in legalese, he called them stupid. You know how to say stupid in legalese?
I would love to find out.
I'll quote Scalia. Empty, formalistic reasoning of the highest order.
Scalia just had a way to tell people to go to hell and make them look forward to the journey. It was pretty special.
Don't you love it? I mean, I've memorized that. I've memorized quite a bit of this. And now get this one. He quotes the Federalist Papers. And Federalist 51, he says this, quote, hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. Let me add my own word. Why? Quoting again, the different governments will control each other.
If you think you're supporting small farms with your coffee choices, think again. Many brands hide behind fancy packaging while sourcing cheap coffee beans. So you need to stop compromising on quality and on ethics. Clockham Craft Coffee was born from a desire for both transparency and excellence in the coffee game. They personally select every bean, ensuring top quality and fair practices. So experience coffee the way it's supposed to be. Honest, delicious, and roasted with care. Plus, an exclusive offer for Brian Nichols Show fans. Use code BNS10 for 10% off at clockhamcraft.coffee. Link in the show notes. And now, let's get back to the show.
So, folks, is it our job in the counties to control the federal government when they come in to abuse and oppress the citizens of my county? It absolutely is. And folks, I just wanted to be sheriff in my hometown. Safford, Arizona, the county seat of Graham County, about 40,000 people, and a sheriff's office of about 15 deputies. And folks, I absolutely loved it. I cherished that job. And because of this lawsuit, I lost my third election. Now, how could you lose fighting for gun rights and the 10th Amendment? Because it became quite controversial. And a lot of agencies across the world were asking for my interviews, and people didn't like that. People just wanted a sheriff. And I never asked for this either. I didn't bring this fight, but I certainly wasn't going to take it lying down. And I said, there's no way I can go along with this because, Brian, let me tell you, I already knew and understood the Constitution. I understood the intent of the Founding Fathers, and I was not going to go back on that. I had been blessed with an epiphany while I was a rookie cop. And then later, a few years later, I went to a training seminar called The Constitution for Law Enforcement. It was taught by Dr. W. Cleon Skousen, who used to work in the FBI with my father. And during that 2-day seminar, I was completely and 100% spiritually converted to the Constitution and to the framers who promulgated it. And so I was never going to go back on that again. And I wanted a complete and total career in law enforcement, but I left the police department where I was working in Utah, Provo PD, and I ran for sheriff before I even came close to a retirement. I had 11 and a half years in, and I ran for sheriff. So I hadn't even lived in my hometown for 12 years. And I was elected sheriff, and it was really a miraculous deal. My wife and I would talk about why was I supposed to be sheriff? Why this big miracle? And then my second term, right after I was elected, is when this Brady Bill thing happened. And my wife, when I told my wife that I wanted to sue the federal government on this, she says, well, maybe now we know why you were supposed to be sheriff. And it really hit me when she said that, because normally I wouldn't have expected her to go along with this. She would have said, no way. We have 5 children. There's no way. Look at all we had to do, the blood, sweat, and tears to get this job, and you're just going to throw it away on some Don Quixote crusade? But she did just the opposite, and she really touched me when she said that. And so we sued. We took it to the Supreme Court, which I never thought it would happen, and we won. And I had lost my third election bid just 2.5 months before we ended up at the Supreme Court. in December of 1996. So Sheriff Prince joined me in the lawsuit. 5 other sheriffs joined the lawsuit, and which pretty much guaranteed us a trip to the Supreme Court. So yes, Sheriff Prince and I were the 2 affiants at the Supreme Court, and I was the primary litigant, even though Prince's name is on it the most. But when we were consolidated at the Ninth Circuit, it was the Mack Prince case, and I've just kept it like that. For some reason, they took my name off afterwards, but it was fine because I was the primary litigant. Both he and I are mentioned in the case, and it was just a miracle. And I'm the one that has kept it going since then, because the power of this case is such a freedom enhancer. And this case saved the office of the sheriff, but it also saved the Second Amendment. And the reason is because the Brady Bill wasn't just one bill, it was a movement. And there were 5 Brady bills scheduled to be passed one year after the other until the Second Amendment, after 5 years and 5 Brady bills, would have been completely gutted and rendered impotent. And so 7 sheriffs ended up doing more for the Second Amendment and for the 10th Amendment than Congress or other organizations have done in the last 75 years.
Well, I mean, Sheriff Mack, without your stepping up and more or less putting both your political career as well as your own personal life on the line, because let's just be real, whenever an average person goes and tries to stand up against the federal government, they're going to use the entire power of said federal government against you. But also, with that being said, you've opened up the door, and fast forward to where we are today, where we're facing some of the most, I think, pro-2A legislation we've seen in hundreds of years. I mean, ever since the Heller versus DC case, which I can almost guarantee would not have been in something we could have looked to as a shining beacon of case law to help strengthen 2A. That wouldn't have probably happened with it. We're not for you stepping up in the 90s to help lead the charge there. So the fact that you put your name, your political career on the line, not to do it because it was easy, but to paraphrase John F. Kennedy, because it was hard, right? And with that, there was value that you're bringing to the table here, not just for your constituency, but this is across the entire country, Sheriff Mack. And I look at where we are today. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you and for Sheriff Prince putting your names on the line, really, to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and we're going to fight back. So I say all that, Sheriff, you look at where we are today, and we see a populace who I think they very much have lost their way. Now, I've had my diagnoses, if you will, of how we got here. I think a lot of it goes to the way that our kids go through this supposed to be education system, but it turns into an indoctrination center instead. And I think right there, that speaks to why we've seen such an influx of students leaving that traditional government schooling system, homeschooling, private schooling, charter schools, school choice across the board. It's been blowing up. But beyond education, Sheriff Mack, I mean, what other areas do you see right now as blinking red lights that we can go and just start hammering on to wake people up, to get people to snap out of this zombie-like state that they've found themselves in? I mean, what can we do to get your average person to look at this and say, this is important and we need to stand up and speak out?
Well, basically, the corruption of Washington, D.C. It is so utterly corrupt. And look at the things that the Biden administration has 100% caused. Now they're saying they have, Kamala Harris, she was against the border being open the whole time.
She wasn't the border. What are we talking about?
To protect us from the cartels. And do you know, folks, do you know how many international terrorists from the Middle East have infiltrated America since Biden has been president?
Too many to count, probably.
It would shock you and it would scare you to death, because they have. And now our greatest enemies have been able to come to America through the southern border. Mexico doesn't try to stop that. They're all for it. Folks, look at the infiltration of Chinese dissidents, Russian dissidents. Folks, all our enemies have set up shop in America. And yes, it's a matter of time before they pull the plug and do another major attack that's going to make 9/11 look like kindergarten. And we better wake up and we better get prepared because it's going to happen. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. They came here for a reason. And so, look, our own government has committed the treason to allow these enemies of America to come in unfettered. Unfettered. And why? Do they want those people here? No. But they're willing to sacrifice that to get more Democrats on the voter rolls to give the Democrat Party a complete and utter monopoly of politics from Hawaii to Bangor, Maine. And folks, that is election fraud and it's treason. And so if you don't want that anymore, why on earth? Why don't you go down the list of all the horrible things that have happened the last 4 years and make a list as to why you should not vote to continue that? For heaven's sakes, folks, do you realize what you're saying when you're saying, yes, we want to vote for Kamala Harris and Walz? We want more crime in the inner cities. We want more proliferation of fentanyl. We want more human trafficking. We want more sexual exploitation of children. And we want more terrorists in America. Folks, how could it get any worse? And then these people are actually trying to decide who to vote for. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't like Trump, so I'm going to have to vote for this destruction of America, the destruction of our Constitution. And there is no question that she and Walz will put a nail in the coffin of our constitutional republic. And folks, we've got to stand against this. We got to see what's going on. I'm not a big Trump fan, but I am a big freedom fan. Mm-hmm. And the only way we preserve liberty is with Trump. One, it would be nice, but the best and most effectual way to preserve our liberty is county by county. Yes. And you have a sheriff that stands up and tells the federal government, there's a few things, I don't care who's president, there's a few things you're not going to do in my county anymore. And the number one is you will check in with me before you do anything in my county. And second, there will be no gun control in my county. You will not come in here and go door to door. I will stand in the way. I will stop it. And folks, believe it or not, this is a peaceful and effective solution. And I don't care if it's freedom of speech, or the right to peaceably assemble, or freedom of religion. But the federal government has been going after Amish farmers, and they don't care about their religion.
Yep.
And they've been...
Attention, freedom lovers. I am excited to tell you about the new Expat Money Summit that's happening this year from October 7th to October 11th. This is your chance to learn from over 40 experts about crafting your perfect Plan B, from acquiring a second passport to diversifying your finances offshore and investing in international real estate. Headline speakers include Liberty legends like Dr. Ron Paul, Doug Casey, and Scott Horton. And the best part, it's absolutely free to attend. Simply visit expatmoneysummit.com to reserve your complimentary ticket. Don't wait. Secure your spot at the world's largest offshore event today. One more time, that's expatmoneysummit.com. And now, let's get back to the show.
Yep. And they've been putting these people in jail and destroying their farms. Folks, this is the greatest enemy to America, our own federal government. And the sheriffs can stop it. And I did it in more ways than one. I stood up to the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers. Another sheriff stood up to the Bureau of Land Management and Forest Service. Another one stood up to the FDA and USDA. And folks, we've got to stand with the sheriff as he stands with us for civil rights. Have you ever heard of people talking about the civil rights? What do you think Martin Luther King fought and died for? We must do likewise today. We've got to stand together and protect our God-given civil rights. If we do it, we have a chance, and we have a chance to keep this peaceful. If we don't stand with our sheriff, it will not remain peaceful. So which one do you want for your family and for your community? You must have a constitutional sheriff, and that's what we do at the CSPOA full-time. And we're going to be having a meeting-conference-action plan put together on September 6th and 7th in Orlando, Florida at the Rosen Shingle Creek Hotel. And you're all welcome to attend. Most importantly, we want you to call your sheriff and get him there. Now, the invitation for that and all the information is front page at CSPOA.org, the same place you get these. We ask you to become a member of the CSPOA posse, which costs a whopping $11 a month or $99 a year, and we need you there. Why? Because that's how we stay funded, and that's how we fund our huge Wake Up, Save America conference with an action plan to do just this, take America back county by county, one good sheriff at a time. You've got to be involved in the process. It's not going to happen if you aren't. We train you as part of our posse so that you can be a posse member for your sheriff. And then you train him and work with him to erect the barriers, as Madison called it, erect the barriers against the incursions of the federal government. Folks, we can keep it peaceful and we can keep it effective. It will not happen if you're not involved. And you'll need your sheriff with you.
Here, Sheriff Mack, we're going to have to go ahead and put a pin in today's conversation right around there. I'll go ahead and start my final thoughts today, and I'll turn things over to you to bring us home. This is something, especially during COVID, that became just like so blatantly apparent. I lived in Philadelphia, PA. I watched as my entire community just succumbed to overreaching federal guidelines.
And that's what we want on overreach. Don't forget that part. Keep going.
Yeah, no, but and that right there, when I saw that firsthand, and I realized that my sheriff's not going to do diddly squat in Philadelphia. So you know what I did? I got the heck out of Dodge, Sheriff Mack. I moved to an area where I was able to have more of an impact with my local community, with my local my local sheriffs, to be able to build those relationships, to build those bonds that, frankly, when you're in a big city, you are a number, right? So to be able to have those relationships, but most importantly, and I just want to drive this point home, is to surround yourself with people who not just think like you, right? We don't want groupthink, but we want values. We want principles. That stuff matters, right? So if you're just surrounding yourself with any Tom, Dick, and Harry, that's fine. But when the stuff hits the fan, you know, that not so great stuff that stinks and it's a little sticky, when that hits the fan, you want people who are on your side truly from the morals, the values, the principle standpoint. And I would even throw in from a religious standpoint as well. You want folks who you know they have your back and you have theirs. That's my final thoughts for today. Sheriff Mack, bring us home. Final thoughts beyond where folks can go ahead, support CSPOA, but also they can go ahead, learn more information about you, and also pick up that nifty little guide you got there. 16 pages, fits right in your front pocket. I got my pocket ready to roll. Where can we go ahead and find that?
CSPOA.org, folks.
There it is.
And just real quickly, there was a sheriff in Florida who arrested Pastor Rodney Howard Brown just for having church. Maybe you heard about that. He's got a mega church in Tampa. Folks, he was arrested in the United States of America for having church. On the other hand, Sheriff Glenn Hamilton prevented a church in his county from being shut down because Pastor Caleb Cooper came to him and said, "I'm not going to shut down, Sheriff, and I want to know what you'll do to protect me and my church." Well, he did. He deputized everybody in that church. And when the state came to shut it down, he told them, everyone in there is deputized under my authority, and this church will remain open because it's under my authority and part of my office. He did not shut down. Pastor Cooper did not shut down one single day, not one single time, and he remained open the whole time during COVID. That's what we're talking about. That's a constitutional sheriff. And folks, if we have 1,000 of those nationwide, that's only a third. We're being realistic. We only need 1,000 to make this happen and to win. And we need you on board with that. Remember, if you don't get involved, this isn't going to happen. It's not going to work. Don't expect me. Don't expect Brian. Don't expect your mommy or your daddy. Certainly don't expect anyone in Washington, D.C. to do this. We have to do it county by county and be there and make it happen.
I hear way too many folks just be like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Does me getting involved actually matter? Yes, especially in this exact situation, because to Sheriff Mack's point, all it takes is one person to stand up and say, nope, this is wrong, and we're going to do things the right way to empower and encourage others to do the same. And you can be that person, right? You could be Sheriff Mack saying, I'm going to go ahead, honey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my name out there and we're going to sue the federal government. We're going to do this, right? And yes, to take the slings, to take the arrows, but there's a reason we have to do it, because when one person stands up and says, no, this is wrong, it encourages others to do the same. Thank you, Sheriff Mack, for being that person to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and actually giving us a fighting chance. 30 years later, we have some of the best 2A rights we've had in this country in literally generations, and it all really stems back to you fighting back and saying, no, we're not going to deal with this Brady Bill nonsense, and we're going to actually, I don't know, go back to this thing that our country was founded on. What's that called? Second Amendment Constitution? Oh yeah, that stuff, because that's actually very important. Sheriff Mack, thank you for joining us. I've truly enjoyed today's conversation. And by the way, folks, all those links, CSPOA.org and the likes, all those can be found in our show notes. So all you got to do is click that little podcast catcher logo in your podcast feed. It'll bring you right to BrianNicholsShow.com, where you can find today's show notes. You can find the video version of the show, which is airing on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and on Facebook in its entirety. Of course, you want to see Sheriff Mack's smiling face here, and of course, see yours truly as well. I mean, why not? But head over to BrianNicholsShow.com. You can check out all nearly 900 episodes here of the show, going all the way back to 2018. We talk about amazing topics across the board, like bail reform, defend the guard, all that and more. So go ahead, check those out. And when you do, just make sure you hit that little subscribe button. And of course, one final plug, and that is to support the folks who support us, like AMP America, like both mine and Sheriff Mack's amazing cardio miracle, which, yes, does in fact help the ticker and apparently helps you post heart attacks. That's good to hear as well. Sheriff Mack, I'm going to have to make sure I let John Hewlett know that you were on the show. You were causing some ruckus and some mayhem, and he'll probably say, good job, Sheriff Mack. So thank you for bringing the cardio miracle tie here together for the show. And then other than that, folks, just one final plug. Go ahead and find yours truly on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram at B Nichols Liberty. Other than that, again, CSPOA.org is where you can go ahead and find the website. With that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Sheriff Richard Mack. We'll see you next time.